About a month ago, I found myself back working with the Ulster Folk Museum. I was asked to help out with a project to introduce some young people just coming into their teens or in their early teens to the stories of the Ulster cycle. I don't know if you're familiar with these stories, but they centre on Navan Fort and on the Iron Age, it's believed to be Iron Age, warrior band led by King Conor MacNessa. And the foremost of the warriors in this band was a young man who was originally known as Satanta, who became known as Cuchulainn, the Hound of Cullen, sometimes known as the Hound of Ulster. And Cuchulainn went to Scotland, to what we would nowadays call a military academy, I suppose, to study the arts of war. And there he met another young Irishman called Ferdia. And Cuchulainn and Ferdia became the two foremost warriors studying together in Scotland. And they made vows to each other there that they would never hurt each other, never seek to fight each other, but they would always look to assist one another in war, until they came back to Ireland and went to their different kingdoms. You can guess what happened. In the fullness of time, there had to be a single combat between the two, and Ferdia, of course, lost it. But Ferdia at first refused to fight with Cuchulainn. He wanted to be true to his vows, and he was persuaded by a variety of ways, because no matter what inducement was sent to him, he at first declined. He declined money and many other promises. But the thing that persuaded him was when the poets were sent, because the poets threatened that they would write songs that would mean that he would be remembered forever as a coward. And it was that challenge that Ferdia couldn't stand. That's what sent him to fight his blood brother, his sworn friend. And the discussions that we had with these young people, I'm sure you can imagine, were very interesting. They brought all sorts of new perspectives to bear. But one young man asked why it should be considered cowardly not to go to fight, not to want to fight. Why should Ferdia have been put in that position? Which led to a very interesting discussion about cowardice and courage, and the way in which cowardice and courage are perceived. And this was brought back into my mind in perhaps what might seem a curious way this week by Reverend Chris's Wednesday worship, because he took us through that beautiful passage from Ecclesiastes that tells us there is a time and a purpose to everything under heaven. And as part of his worship, Reverend Chris thought about COVID-19 and about the difficult times that we have been having, but how we will move out of those times. And we gave thanks together for the healthcare workers, for care home workers, for all of those who've been working so hard in a variety of ways, perhaps putting their own lives at risk to bring us through this terrible time. And he also referred to those who have been working so hard and using their skills and abilities, their scientific skills, to develop a vaccine which we hope is going to deliver us from these difficult times. And Reverend Chris then went on to give thanks for those who had volunteered. They had allowed themselves to be guinea pigs so that the vaccine could be tried out. Here too is another kind of courage. Courage can be found in all sorts of surprising places, in all sorts of corners of unmarked lives. We all have courage in our lives. If we have our faith and live it truly, then we live with courage.